Welcome back to the Hype Mind. We have a great topic for you. We're going to be
I
talking
do.
about confrontation. There's
Correct.
a lot to it. But we're specifically going to be going into the cons of confrontation. Talk about some of the pros, why it's important, but we're going to go into a little greater detail on the cons of avoiding confrontation. Daniel, what does the word confrontation provoke in your thoughts when I say that?
Confronting. Confronting usually sounds like something you don't want to confront.
Well said. Yeah, I think that's pretty relatable for a lot of people, especially with the lack of courage and with a society that encourages people to not be as honest, to protect yourself and to keep yourself safe and to not hurt others' feelings. It's very easy to take the easy route when faced with something of that nature, like you talked about.
Right, for sure. No, yeah, I think for sure confrontation is hard for people. Difficult.
So here's the
I mean,
deal,
yeah, I think I want to address first. It could be that's the thing. It's not. It could be hard for everybody, right? Doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, but it's hard, and there could be without one of the cons I'll mention without confronting and with avoiding confrontation, what happens is, you don't bring the problem out, right? It's kept inside, and you may build resentment or anger, and hey, that's not going to help the situation at all, right? It's not going to do anything. So, avoiding confrontation doesn't fix anything, right? Confronting is going to solve the problems. You don't bring
well, and
anything up.
I think it's common that a lot of people will avoid it in the hopes that someone else will bring it up, someone else will do something about it. But um, there's a couple sayings that come to mind. The first is if you want something done right, you do it yourself, right? So that kind of tells you it's necessary to take responsibility because even if someone else does it, they might not do it
Hmm.
very well. Um, and it's not a quote, but the other thing that comes to mind is, well, actually, I guess it is. I've heard plenty of people discuss how, like, if you leave it up to someone else, it's not going to happen. Don't leave things up to someone else. Just do it because it's, especially if you're not going to communicate. If you're going to leave something up to someone else in the hopes that they do it without communicating,
Hmm.
it's not
Right,
going to happen. Nobody's
right.
going to do it.
Well, we could go a little bit deeper and ask, and have you asked the question? Okay, why am I avoiding confrontation? Right? Why would I rather have someone do this? Is this because of some fear? Is this because of some silly idea? Um, is
And
this because,
insecurity,
yeah, insecurity? I don't want to, offend somebody at all. And
which we have a couple of really good conversations on insecurity. One of them is about to be published if we didn't just publish it. But anyway, yeah, keep going.
um, I had another thought to that.
Well, it'll come back. No, I think one of the biggest things is it is a fear. The reason people avoid confrontation is because they're uncomfortable in it. It makes them anxious, which is normal. It's normal. But it's important to realize that I think the number one reason people avoid it is it's uncomfortable, and it's uncomfortable because it provokes anxiety.
Hmm. Right. I want to actually bring a point of view too, as well. Is a lot of times because of the fear, we fear offending somebody else. Right? We feel maybe hurting their feelings, something like that. So, you know, the big thing is you don't know if it's actually gonna, be received in a negative way. You also
Right.
don't know if it's gonna be received in a positive way.
Well, and you
And
also
then back up a little bit because you can't really control that. So like you can obviously you can do what
you
you
can
can,
actually
control
though.
how you say it, right? Control how you if you were to bring up, you know, something that's confronting, you don't want it to come off offensive as any uh, offensive at all. Do what you can. You can reward things as much as you want. You of course you can't. You can do what you can do. You can't affect how they're going to react to you, right? So
Right.
I mean, that's also something to think about. But you also remember, you also don't know if you never know if they're going to receive it positively either. So there's two
Well,
sides to that.
but I think that's what makes it so anxiety provoking. You don't know how people are going to receive it, you know. And you talked about how one of the big things is the emotional side to that is you don't want to hurt someone. And when you step into confrontation, you'd rather avoid it. Uh, yeah, you'd rather avoid stepping into confrontation so as not to hurt someone. And the thing is, you're right, you don't know how they're going to take it. But the flip side to that is you can control and help guide them into how they're going to take it. You know, you can prepare, you can be very thoughtful, you could put yourself in their shoes and be very proactive in how you present it to them, how you confront the problem. You know, I I
Hmm.
think I think one of the biggest forms of confrontation is I think there's a couple big ones. You know, one might be employee to employee where you're talking to someone who's on the same level as you. And you're like, I don't want them to not like me. We're coworkers, you know, and it's like, yeah, they might take it the wrong way, especially if they don't take things well, but there's still lots of ways you can say, I'm not perfect, but but you know, what can I do to help you? Right. And that's a great question to start asking, right?
Hmm.
What can I do to help? I see this as possibly a problem, you know, and you offer your service to them.
Right.
Like
I'm
there's a
gonna go a
lot of
little.
ways.
I want to go a little bit off what you're talking about too, because Andrew's talking about controlling, or it's how you bring it up, right? It's what you can do,
Yep.
and that's also right. You
Taking
you
responsibility
may
for what you
right
have control over.
exactly. You may bring something up and offend somebody in some way instantly. But what you could do, you be proactive, right? You can see that you can be aware of that, and so you can bring it up, and then you can knock that wall down, and then get back to the problem. If they get offended by it, address it, take care of it. It's not like this. I'm just I'm just giving it a go, and seeing if they get offended or not. This is being the leader of the conversation and being like, okay, this is the problem. Okay, you're upset
Right.
about that. Okay, I didn't mean for you to be upset about that, right?
Right.
All I want to do is be able to
Clarifying.
solve the problem. Okay, you're still upset about that. Okay, let's talk about it a little bit so we can get
Right.
past that so we can move on to the problem. So
All
yeah, there's things you can
all
do.
excellent points. All excellent points. And we don't want to get too caught up in telling you how to confront. We just want to remind you that there's proactive ways to confront things where you don't have to come off as the bad guy, where it's okay to face this stuff. Um, you know, the big thing is, yeah, confrontation can be hard sometimes
Hmm.
and it can be anxiety provoking,
Right.
right? But there's a flip side to that. When you fail to do that, you actually cheat people of the truth, right? Because you know, you've heard of stuff like constructive criticism. I like to call it suggestive criticism, or I'm sorry, rather constructive suggestion. That's how I like to refer to that. But a lot of people will call it constructive criticism. A lot of people, when you share that kind of stuff with them, they don't take it well. They take it personally, right? You can't control that. Again, focus on what you can control. But you know, when you don't bring the truth out into light, you cheat people of the truth and you hurt them and you hurt yourself. So like, yeah, you're worried that in telling them and confronting this problem you might offend them or hurt them. Sure, that's totally realistic. But you do the same when you don't confront it anyway and the problem persists. So when you know, pull the scales out and weigh the pros and cons, not confronting is even worse and deadlier and in some cases more malicious. and holds much more darkness than confronting the problem,
Hmm.
especially if
Right.
you know and you feel it needs to be confronted. Because you don't just cheat them when you don't bring the truth out, you cheat yourself because this is clearly a problem you deem worthy. And so you cheat yourself and hurt yourself. You hurt yourself in an attempt to not hurt them. And then both people end up hurt because you hurt them by not telling them, even though you're worried about hurting them by telling them. And you hurt yourself by not telling anybody or by addressing the problem. So it just does more damage to keep it locked up, right? So that's where courage comes in. You need to, maybe you need to be specific. You do a reality check, as we like to call them, and this is where I'm at. This is what's going on. I'm going to be very specific with my problem. This is where I want to be. This is what I need to say. I don't need to say any more than this, but I need to hit this point. Then you figure out how you're going to do that, right? And then the good thing is when you define points A and B and a plan, you're able to much more courageously and easily step into doing it. It's so much more easy to accomplish things when you have a plan. And you know this. You do know this. I know you know this. And I'm speaking to the crowd out there. You know that when you have a plan, it's easier to accomplish things most of the time. So yeah,
That's great.
comments.
I love what you said about having courage and making a plan. That's super important. And just to reiterate again that it's a misconception. You think that what you're doing by not confronting is a good thing, but
It's
actually
not.
it's not. So
Well, and again, there it is. You're thinking, right? Thinking is good. Stop thinking though and start acting. Let's get some work done. You know what I'm saying? Thinking is important, but the greatest accomplishments in history involved a great deal more of action in many cases. So let's get out there and act, let's make a difference. And again, especially if this is something that's anxiety provoking, that's when it becomes really important to be specific and to make a plan, because planning stuff takes away anxiety, right? It gives you, it's like following instructions.
mhm.
It gives you something to, it gives you the step by step solution. So make a plan, and a lot of your anxiety comes
it
off of
makes
your
yeah,
shoulders.
it makes your problem tangible. It gives you back self-confidence, right? Once you
Yeah,
take
that
that first
courage.
step, once you start planning, right, you can see it. It's not this, idea that we can't concept of. Like once we have a plan, we can start thinking, okay, what's the possible positive outcome, right? What can I do about this instead of what is this doing to me?
But and understanding that this is the big thing, to not act is not okay, right? To not confront is not okay. There's more harm done in not confronting than in confronting. Thanks for
Definitely.
joining. Peace.